Maria had always dreamed of leaving behind the small town where she grew up. It was a quiet, forgotten place where opportunities were scarce and dreams were dimmed by the weight of poverty. Her father had left when she was young, and her mother struggled to raise her and her siblings. When she turned 18, she packed what little she had and set off for the city, convinced that she could find a better life. But the city was unforgiving. With no formal education or connections, Maria quickly found herself lost. For a time, she worked in a diner, serving customers who barely glanced her way. The pay was meager, and she could barely afford the rent for the tiny apartment she shared with 3 other girls. Desperation loomed over her, and before long, she found herself drawn into a world she never imagined, one where survival came at a high personal cost. It started with a friend's suggestion. Escort work, she called it. It's temporary, Maria, her friend had assured her, just until you get on your feet. Maria resisted at first, but as bills mounted and hope faded, she made the choice. What was supposed to be a temporary fix quickly became her only means of survival. She detached herself from the work, emotionally distancing herself from the men who came and went, treating it as just another job. Each night, she buried her shame and guilt, reminding herself that it was only temporary, though years passed, and there seemed to be no way out. One evening, Maria was booked to meet a new client, a man named David. He was different from the moment she met him. David was in his early 30s, tall with a quiet confidence that immediately put Maria at ease. When she arrived at his hotel room, she expected the same routine: small talk, quick transaction, and then goodbye. But David surprised her. Instead of immediately rushing to business, he offered her a drink and asked her about her day. At first, Maria was wary, assuming he was just another client trying to appear charming, but something about David was genuine. He didn't just ask out of politeness. He seemed to really care about her answers. They talked for hours, long after their time was up. When it was time to part, David simply smiled and handed her the agreed-upon fee, saying, "If you ever need anything, I'm here." Over the next few months, David became a regular client. Each time they met, it felt less like a business arrangement and more like 2 people simply enjoying each other's company. David was kind, gentle, and patient. He never treated her like a commodity. Instead, he listened to her, asked her about her life, and made her feel valued. Maria found herself opening up to him in ways she never had with anyone else. She told him about her childhood, her dreams of becoming a writer, and the fear that she would never escape the life she was trapped in. David listened, offering comfort but never judgment. Slowly, Maria began to feel something she hadn't felt in years: hope. As the months went by, Maria's feelings for David deepened. She tried to resist it, telling herself that he was just another client and that nothing could ever come of their relationship. But David wasn't like the others. There was something about him that made her feel safe, seen, and cared for in a way she had never experienced. One night, after they had spent hours talking, David did something unexpected. He reached out and took her hand, gently squeezing it. "Maria, you don't have to keep doing this," he said softly. "You're worth so much more than this life." His words hit her like a wave, and for the first time in years, Maria allowed herself to cry. She had built up so many walls over the years, convinced that no one would ever truly care for her, but David's kindness and sincerity broke through those defenses. That night was different from all the others. For the first time, they didn't just share their bodies, they shared their hearts. Their connection went beyond the physical, and Maria found herself falling for David in a way she hadn't expected. But deep down, she knew it couldn't last. Her past, her life as a call girl, would always be a barrier between them. As much as Maria cared for David, she knew that their relationship could never be truly equal. She was still living a life of survival, a life that made her feel unworthy of love. The more her feelings for David grew, the more terrified she became that he would eventually see her for what she really was and leave her. One day, after a particularly emotional night with David, Maria made the painful decision to leave. She couldn't keep pretending that their relationship was sustainable. She couldn't risk falling deeper in love with him, only to have him walk away when he learned the full truth about her past. Without saying goodbye, Maria packed her bags and moved to another city. She changed her phone number and left no way for David to find her. It was the hardest decision she had ever made, but she convinced herself that it was for the best. Months passed, and Maria tried to rebuild her life. She found a job working as a waitress and vowed never to return to the escort business. But as time went on, she noticed something was wrong. She was late. After a visit to the doctor, her suspicions were confirmed. Maria was pregnant. The news shook her to her core. She had always wanted to be a mother, but not like this. Not in these circumstances. She considered reaching out to David, but fear held her back. How could she possibly explain this to him? She decided to raise the child on her own, determined to provide her baby with a better life than the one she had known. 3 years passed. Maria's son, Lucas, was the light of her life. Though being a single mother was difficult, she had never regretted her decision to keep him. She had built a modest life for herself and was proud of the progress she had made. But fate had other plans for Maria. One afternoon, she was volunteering at a charity event when she spotted a familiar face in the crowd, David. He was there as a sponsor for the event, looking as confident and composed as ever. Maria's heart stopped. She had never expected to see him again, and now, here he was, standing just a few feet away from her. David saw her too, and the look of shock on his face mirrored her own. He quickly crossed the room to where she stood, his eyes locking onto the child at her side. Lucas looked up at him with wide, curious eyes, and David's expression softened. "Maria," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is he?" Maria nodded, tears filling her eyes. "He's yours." The months of separation melted away as they talked. Maria explained everything. Why she had left, how she had struggled, and why she had kept Lucas a secret. David listened, his face a mixture of hurt and relief. He had never stopped thinking about her, never stopped wondering what had happened to her. Despite the time and distance, the connection between them was still there. David was overwhelmed with joy at the realization that he was a father, and he immediately wanted to be part of Lucas's life. Slowly, they began to rebuild their relationship, this time with honesty and vulnerability. Within a year, they were married, a small and intimate ceremony that marked the beginning of their new life together. Maria finally felt the peace and stability she had longed for, and together, they built a life filled with love, redemption, and hope for the future. After David and Maria's reunion, the days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. David was determined to be a part of Lucas's life, but more than that, he wanted to rekindle the bond he shared with Maria. However, the scars of the past still haunted her. Despite her love for him, Maria struggled with feelings of guilt and fear. She constantly questioned whether David could truly accept her for who she was, knowing her past in its entirety. For weeks, Maria kept David at arm's length, even though they saw each other often. He spent more time with Lucas, taking him to the park, teaching him how to ride a bike, and reading him bedtime stories. Lucas, young and innocent, quickly grew attached to his father, looking up to him with admiration. Seeing David as a loving, devoted father made Maria's heart swell with affection, but she also couldn't shake the nagging fear that this happiness was temporary. David, sensing Maria's hesitation, chose not to push her. He was patient, always showing up, never pressing her for more than she was ready to give. Yet, his quiet persistence only intensified Maria's internal struggle. She had never known love like this, unconditional, unwavering, and accepting. One night, after putting Lucas to bed, David lingered a little longer at Maria's apartment. They sat together on the couch, the air heavy with unsaid words. "Maria," David began softly, "I know you're afraid, but I'm not going anywhere. I don't care about what you've done in the past. What matters to me is who you are now, the mother you've become, and the person I fell in love with." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes as she listened. For so long, she had believed that her past made her unworthy of love, but David's words pierced through that belief. He wasn't running. He wasn't turning away. He was staying, just as he had promised. That night, for the first time since their reunion, Maria let down her walls completely. She confessed everything: the shame, the regret, and the fear that had kept her from embracing the future. David held her close, whispering reassurances, reminding her that they had already overcome so much together. They spent the night talking, sharing their hopes for the future and the life they could build as a family. It was the beginning of a new chapter for Maria, a chapter where she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of happiness and trust in the love David had for her. As Maria and David began building their life together, they quickly realized that love alone wasn't enough to navigate the complexities of parenthood and blending their lives. Raising Lucas was a joy, but it also came with challenges. Maria had been raising him on her own for the first 3 years, and she had developed a routine that was hard to break. David, while well-meaning, often found himself stepping into unfamiliar territory, unsure of how to navigate the dynamics of being a father after being absent for so long. Lucas, though young, could sense the tension at times. He adored his father and loved the newfound attention, but the adjustment wasn't always easy. There were moments when Maria, out of habit, would try to manage everything herself, unintentionally sidelining David. And there were moments when David, eager to make up for lost time, would overcompensate, sometimes stepping in when Maria didn't need him to. These small frictions began to build over time, creating tension between the couple. Maria found herself growing frustrated, not with David, but with the situation. She wanted to do everything right, for Lucas, for David, and for herself, but she couldn't shake the fear that she was failing in some way. Meanwhile, David struggled with feelings of inadequacy. He wanted to be the perfect father and partner, but he often felt like he was playing catch-up. One evening, after a particularly long day, Maria and David found themselves in the middle of an argument. It started over something small. David had forgotten to pick up groceries and quickly escalated. "You're not the only one making sacrifices here, Maria," David snapped, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm trying to be here for both of you, but it feels like nothing I do is enough." Maria, exhausted and emotionally drained, lashed out in return. "I've been doing this alone for years, David. It's not as easy as just showing up and playing dad whenever it's convenient for you." The words hung in the air, sharp and painful. Maria immediately regretted them, but the damage was done. David's face fell, hurt flashing in his eyes. Without another word, he turned and left the apartment, needing space to cool down. Maria sat alone in the silence, tears streaming down her face. She knew that the argument hadn't been about groceries or parenting. It was about their fears, the fear that they weren't enough, that their pasts would always haunt them, and that their new life together would crumble under the weight of those insecurities. That night, Maria lay awake, thinking about all they had been through. She realized that their struggles weren't just about Lucas or their differing approaches to parenting. They were still learning how to be a team, how to trust each other completely, and that trust, she realized, couldn't happen overnight. The next morning, David returned. His face was etched with guilt and regret. "Maria, I'm sorry," he said quietly, sitting beside her at the kitchen table. "I shouldn't have walked out like that." Maria shook her head, wiping away her tears. "No, I'm the one who's sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. I know you're trying, and I know this isn't easy for either of us." They sat in silence for a moment, the tension between them slowly dissipating. David reached for her hand. "We're going to figure this out together," he said softly. "But we have to stop treating this like it's something we're doing alone. I'm not just Lucas's father. I'm your partner. We're a family now." His words resonated with Maria. She realized that, in many ways, she had been holding herself back, still trying to shoulder the weight of everything on her own. She had been so used to surviving alone that she hadn't fully allowed herself to rely on David. Over the next few weeks, Maria and David worked on rebuilding their partnership. They started attending therapy together, learning how to communicate better and how to navigate the complexities of being parents. The therapist helped them uncover deeper fears and insecurities, guiding them toward a better understanding of each other's emotional needs. For Maria, therapy was a revelation. She hadn't realized how much of her identity had been shaped by her past as a call girl. The guilt and shame she had carried for so long had affected not only her relationship with David, but also her ability to fully embrace her role as a mother. Therapy helped her begin the process of healing, allowing her to see herself as worthy of love and forgiveness. David, too, found the process healing. He learned how to be more patient, not just with Maria, but with himself. He had spent so long trying to make up for lost time that he hadn't allowed himself the grace to simply be present, imperfections and all. Slowly, their relationship began to strengthen. They learned how to lean on each other, to share the burdens and joys of parenthood, and to trust in the love they had built. As the months passed, Maria and David grew closer than ever. Their relationship had weathered its storms, and they had come out stronger on the other side. With Lucas now 4 years old, their little family was thriving, full of love and laughter. One afternoon, David took Maria and Lucas to a park where they had spent many weekends together. It was a beautiful autumn day, the air crisp and the trees glowing with shades of orange and red. As they walked along the path, Lucas ran ahead, his laughter echoing in the breeze. David reached for Maria's hand, a soft smile on his face. "You know, I've been thinking," he said, his tone casual but with a hint of something more. Maria raised an eyebrow, sensing that something important was coming. "Oh, what about?" David stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious but full of love. "I've been thinking about how lucky I am to have you in my life. And I've been thinking that I don't want to waste another moment without making it official." Before Maria could react, David dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. Her heart skipped a beat as he opened it, revealing a simple yet elegant diamond ring. "Maria, I love you. I've loved you since the moment we met, and I can't imagine my life without you. You've given me a beautiful son, and together we've built something that I never thought was possible. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Maria's eyes as she looked down at David, her heart swelling with emotion. She had never imagined that her life could turn out this way, that she could find love, redemption, and a family after everything she had been through. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "Yes, David, I'll marry you." David slipped the ring onto her finger, standing to embrace her. They kissed, the world around them fading away as they held each other close. Maria and David's wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. It wasn't the grand, extravagant event that some might have imagined, but for them, it was perfect. The ceremony was held in a beautiful garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and the people who had supported them through their journey. As they exchanged vows, Maria felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had spent so much of her life running, from her past, from her fears, and from the idea that she could ever truly be loved. But now, standing beside David, she knew that she had found her home. David's vows were simple but heartfelt. "Maria, you've shown me what it means to love without limits, to forgive, and to start over. I promise to stand by you through every challenge and joy that comes our way. You and Lucas are my heart, and I will love you for the rest of my life." Maria's own vows were filled with gratitude and love. "David, you've taught me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up even when things are hard. You've given me a second chance at happiness, and I promise to love you with all that I am, for all the days of our lives." As they kissed to seal their vows, Lucas cheered from the front row, clapping his little hands in delight. The moment was perfect, a symbol of the love and resilience that had carried them through so much. Years passed, and Maria and David continued to grow their family. They had another child, a daughter named Sophia, who brought even more joy to their lives. Together, they built a life full of love, laughter, and hope. Maria eventually fulfilled her dream of becoming a writer, publishing a memoir about her journey. It was a story of survival, redemption, and the power of love. Her book became an inspiration to many, proving that no matter where life takes you, it's never too late to find happiness. David continued to support her every step of the way, proud of the woman she had become. Together, They raised Lucas and Sophia with the values of compassion, strength, and love, teaching them that, no matter what obstacles they faced, they could always rise above. Once filled with heartache and uncertainty, had become a testament to the power of forgiveness, healing, and the belief that even the most broken hearts can be mended. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.